I'm joined by Dan Arbell, who's the former deputy chief of mission at the Israeli embassy here in Washington and is currently a scholar in residence at American University. Great to have you with us. You know, Israelis are heading to the polls Tuesday. This is largely being seen as a referendum on the Prime Minister Netanyahu. What will be on their minds as they head to the polls? What are some of the deciding issues of this election?
So interestingly, as you've said, this is a referendum over Netanyahu's continued leadership. He's been prime minister for 4 terms. He's running for a 5th term. And somehow the election centers over whether he's qualified or not, whether he's the one to lead the country or not, and sort of has marginalized very important issues like the cost of living, socio-economic issues, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which usually takes top priority for Israelis, but they're going to go tomorrow and mostly cast their vote either for or against Benjamin Netanyahu.
This has been one of the biggest political fights for his career. How critical has the Trump administration's support been for Netanyahu in his re-election bid? The Trump-Netanyahu relationship is almost unprecedented. The Trump administration has gone out of its way to help the prime minister. They know he's struggling in the polls. They know it's a very tight race, and they've been doing all these, taking all these steps in order to help him. Whether it's the Jerusalem decision last year, the Golan Heights decision just in recent weeks, and only today we saw the decision on the IRGC to put it in the category of terrorist organizations, which is another kind of last-minute attempt to help Mr. Netanyahu tomorrow. Do you think that that will be effective?
Well, Israelis do look to Netanyahu and see him as kind of respected statesman, and they see him as someone who enjoys world recognition and admiration, and so it does play a role. That particular IRGC decision, I think it comes too late in the game, perhaps, but other decisions like the Golan and Jerusalem certainly figure in calculations of Israelis going to vote.
Do you think that the president, though, has gone too far in terms of...
In my opinion, the president and the administration have gone very far, perhaps as an Israeli, I would say too far, in showing who they want to win. And almost unprecedentedly, as they've been taking all these decisions. And only recently, the Prime Minister visited Washington, got a red carpet hospitality at the White House, and his main contender, Benny Gantz, who was in town, was snubbed by the administration. So it's clearly shown, they're clearly showing who they favor in the race.
So we've been hearing a lot of back and forth here in Washington, a lot of political rhetoric when it comes to the U.S. relationship with Israel, when it comes to politicians' relationships with Israel. And of course, this is cropping up during the 2020 presidential campaign. We heard one of the presidential candidates, Beto O'Rourke, calling Netanyahu a racist. Why do you think we're seeing a lot of dissension among American politicians here in the United States? Are they moving away from the strategic alliance with Israel?
So, you know, bipartisanship has always been a pillar of the U.S.-Israel relationship. They go back 70 years, very strong, solid, multi-layered, multifaceted relations. However, in recent years, both Democrats, from their own inner dynamics, but also Israel, Netanyahu himself, has played in American politics, which made this polarizing or alienating Democrats, and we see the signs of it today. This is just the beginning, and I'm very much afraid this is going to get worse as we head towards 2020. But it's certainly an issue to be concerned about for Israelis.
Dan Arbell, appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks
Pleasure
for that.
To be here. Thanks.
Well, Sudan's president has reportedly called for an emergency meeting with his National Congress Party in a bid to curb anti-government protests. For 3 days now, thousands of people have held a sit-in outside the defense ministry, demanding President Omar al-Bashir's resignation. On Monday, the army protected them from police gunfire. Protesters also want the military to hold talks to form a transitional government. Sudan's Interior Ministry says around 2,500 people
have been arrested in the capital, Khartoum. Well, a U.S. judge has blocked the Trump administration from forcing asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their cases are being processed. In January, the U.S. government introduced a new policy that sent asylum seekers waiting their court hearings in Mexico. The injunction comes one day after the Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen's resignation. That policy was her last attempt to stop illegal crossings along the border with Mexico. The preliminary injunction is nationwide and will go into effect on Friday. Well, the world's glaciers are melting faster than scientists thought. That's according to a new study. The World Glacier Monitoring Service at the University of Zurich has looked at 19,000 glaciers around the world. They say the speed that they're shrinking is 5 times faster now than in the 60s. The glaciers are losing 369 billion tons of snow and ice every year.
Glaciers react with a certain delay. So even if we would stop emissions now, glaciers would continue to lose mass because they were not yet able to react to the past climate change. So even if you fix the problem today, glaciers would continue for the next 10, 20, maybe 30 years to melt.
And 2 astronauts on board the International Space Station have successfully completed their